Hello, my name is Jamie Rains. I am a 26-year-old transgender man from the UK. I'm currently studying to do a PhD in psychology, but I also make YouTube videos as well. On my YouTube channel, I talk about things from advice, education, my personal experience of being trans, things about my relationship, and then just kind of more fun and lifestyle content to kind of show that there's more to me than just being trans. My personal experience with periods started when I was 13 years old and I had my first one. I don't know how else to describe how it made me feel other than just genuine shock. Like, I was really shocked it happened to me. I find it difficult to describe. It's kind of like because of the way I felt in my head, it was just something I had been taught about and I'd learned the whole like mechanics of periods and how they work, but just did not think it would happen to me. But it did, and it was not the best moment in my life when I realised that, and then every single month I kept hoping that it would be the last one. And it wasn't for years and years. And then I started testosterone just before I turned 18. And typically testosterone will stop periods for trans men. For me, it took a lot longer than normal. It took a year for my periods to stop after I started taking testosterone, when typically it takes about 3 months-ish. Can be less, can be a little bit more, but that's the normal time frame. So mine took a lot longer. When you're a trans guy, or at least for me being a trans guy, when I had my period, it was kind of this painful reminder that I was different. It was this very obvious physical thing happening to my body that I found difficult to ignore, that kind of reminded me of what my body was like. And having periods as a trans guy and the effect they have on your body can really heighten something called dysphoria. And dysphoria is kind of an extreme distress caused by the fact that your gender is different to your assigned birth sex, and kind of anything that reminds you of this physical, social, psychological, and periods is just one of those things that is a very strong reminder and can really trigger dysphoria. For me, I always had a lot of fear that people would find out that I was on my period, or that I still experienced periods. It was something that I struggled talking about, and I found that putting a humorous spin on it kind of helped me a lot, but it's still something I found very difficult. And there was either the fear that people would find out and it would out me as trans, or that people would just find out and even if they knew I was trans, I would just find it embarrassing in a way. I don't really know how else to describe it. Being out as trans and experiencing your period can really make things like public bathrooms difficult to navigate. For example, men's public bathrooms don't have any bin in the cubicle for you to put sanitary things away. The crinkliness of the packaging and worrying that other people are going to hear it and things like that. And then there just being a sense of it being something you can't talk about, either through embarrassment or not wanting it to mean people know that you're a trans guy, those kind of things. And then before you come out as trans, you still got all those like internal feelings and not wanting people to know that you're on your period because it's something you're uncomfortable with. But things like public bathrooms are easier to navigate because it's obviously a lot more accepted within society that women have periods, and it's not really accepted that some men can as well. But although that may sound like a positive, it's not really, because there's the added layer of dysphoria by not being out and still having to live as female, and those kind of things. It's all just a big mess of dysphoria and discomfort. I personally see periods as something that is both individual and political. Periods are something that affects people in different ways depending on their individual circumstances or their identities, but there's also larger conversations to be had that are more political in nature, such as tax on period products and period poverty. It's also something that's hugely taboo both within the trans community, between trans people themselves, and then also outside of the trans community when it comes to trans men having periods. In my personal experience, it's something that's used most frequently to undermine trans men as men, and is not even openly discussed very much within the trans community. And I think a lot of that is because of the outside social stigma that comes with being a man who experiences periods, but then also just the dysphoria that it can cause on an individual level. In terms of the way that society as a whole addresses periods, it does almost completely erase the experience of trans men, apart from some few campaigns or some small companies that highlight it. But a lot of the time with discussions, it's very kind of strongly emphasized and specified that the discussion is about women and women only. Men's public bathrooms are not equipped to deal with sanitary waste, and campaigns always typically emphasize more feminine aspects and are aimed solely at women. And as a trans guy, that can be difficult to see and kind of make periods something that feels more uncomfortable because of the way it's viewed by society. But we are seeing progress in some various areas, like even me speaking here about periods and being a trans guy who's had that experience. This is all like progressing things forward and opening the discussion up more, but there is still a long way to go. We have also seen some companies drop the specific labeling and packaging aimed at only women, and this can make periods something that's easier and more comfortable to navigate as a trans man. Representation is a big one, and it's a huge deal, and having a trans man speaking in period campaigns or being part of discussions relating to periods is a huge step in the right direction and can just really open up that conversation, which is very important to do.